Hello everyone, welcome back. You're watching Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 198. I'm Enigmius, and today you can see I've been a little bit busy. Everything that you're seeing here is basically what we had in the last episode, except I got rid of all of the connecting blocks so that we've just got the points that indicate the outer extents of the nacelles. If you look at it, you can almost connect the dots and see things taking shape in your mind already, which is kind of cool. I always find, you can see we've got the front profile here. It's already got that sort of a elegant curve, I guess you could say. And it's, I wish we could just kind of leave it like that and have everyone just connect the dots in their mind, because it's difficult to preserve that throughout the entirety of the build process and adding in all the blocks to close it off. So I've got the yellow paint out to mark that front sort of profile that we did, and then the red, of course, marks everything else. When I did all of the profiles, I was basically just going from the center in terms of how I placed them in the game world, and I realized, fortunately in time, before it forced me to redo a bunch of things, that I needed to start this main profile, the top-down sort of profile, a little bit lower than I'd originally sort of indicated based on where I was putting all of the blocks, in order for it to line up with the way everything else is going to work out. So we caught it, no time was wasted, nothing bad came of it. So it's really just a case now of connecting the dots, literally. In some cases, what I found is that it was easiest for me to just kind of place the cubes and then come back and place half blocks to smooth things out a little bit more. The main issue, as I've discussed with half blocks in the past, is that they don't have the same number of blocks to connect to them as full blocks. So you end up with this really great profile, but when you try and translate it into a 3D object, you run into trouble trying to make it work out. But I don't think we'll have too much trouble this time around, because ultimately the nacelle is a fairly simple shape. It's basically a great big rectangle, and it's got some softening of the edges, and then we have the underside as well that we'll be doing after we do the main part of the nacelle. So if things don't come together quite the way you might have expected them to based on the profiles, it's just because you don't get the full 3D perspective from all of the profiles that we use. Like the front perspective that we use, the one that we've got marked in the yellow blocks, what you might not realize from looking at that is that the bottom portion of that, where it just kind of dips down, represents just it's more of a detail added onto the underside of the nacelle than it is something that runs from the front of the nacelle to the back. So I just wanted to be a little bit careful about how I went about assembling that part, because if we start just connecting the dots, pulling things from that central part there, that front profile, we're going to end up with a lot of wasted time and a lot of head scratching that I would prefer to avoid. And you see, we've got basically the top profile more or less taken care of. Again, we're just filling in a few of the edges with the half blocks, just to kind of refine them a little bit and give ourselves something to kind of mull over the next little while. And what I did after this, that you won't see, is I actually started trying to do more about the front end than this central section that we're doing now. This part here, working on this profile, not that big of a deal. Trying to get the sides with the compound curves coming into play is a little bit more tricky. And I spent about 20 minutes on that and realized that I was making zero progress. So the benefit of having invested that time is that I've got a few ideas when I approach it the next time about things that don't work. So it'll probably go a little bit better. And now all I'm trying to do is really, I don't want to start sort of eroding the profile from the very beginning. When I say eroding, I mean we've got these little red dots that sort of help you draw out in your mind this nice, soft, flowing curve off the front of the nacelle. If we drift too far from that when we're trying to fill in the lines between the dots, the chances of ever actually getting it close to that become very, very slim indeed, because the only way to do that becomes to pull things apart and start all over. So I spent a little bit of extra time kind of looking at things here and deciding where I would have to make a few adjustments to the original profile just to make everything fit together the way that I wanted it to. And you can see we actually did a fairly decent job. It turned out, I think, about as good as I can get it in a voxel universe for that kind of curve, without trying to complicate it to the extent that the complications just distract from whatever shape we end up with anyways. So we might as well just stick with it. And this is where we start doing the, I'll just start working on the sides bit. And then I said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to work our way back. So now we're going to focus a little bit on the side profile, specifically in this case, the top part of the side profile, because like I say, the underside is where we start getting into that part of the ship it requires a little bit more attention on my part when we start to put that into place. And I would rather do it having spent a little bit more time at the drawings and kind of measuring a few things out and getting a feel for exactly how I want that to go together. But for now, we can definitely get this top part into place, and it'll be another element that we can look at over the next couple of days as we're working on other things and decide if we got it close enough or if we need to make some changes before we start using that as the basis to make things 3D, kind of extending around. It's kind of taking shape in a way that I'm happy with, which is always nice. You can't complain when you look at it and you say, yeah, I like that, I'm happy with that. I can mostly leave it alone and go work on other things. And at this point, a big part of it is just trying to keep things nice and clean, getting rid of extra blocks before letting them sit too long and you forget that they're actually extra blocks, and it just confuses things later on. So in this case, there were a number of things that I could do from this point forward, but I decided instead that what I wanted to do was basically try having this ridge down the sides of the nacelles, and I'm pretty sure the actual ship has something like that. There's a point where the transitions just sort of come together, and it's got sort of a ridge down the sides of the nacelles, and then light it up so that you see just this line going down the side in whatever color. And again, focusing on something that I can leave for a day or two and sort of decide if anything about it is something I want to keep, and if so, what. I've already, having put it in place and looked at it, I've already decided that what you see here in terms of the color is going to change. There's some adjustments that I can make to the lights to improve, I think, the way that they show up. And just in general, I just felt like having a little bit of fun with something. There's only so much of this profile stuff that I can do before I want to just do something silly and creative. Realistically, I don't know if having a light strip down the side of the nacelles is that close to the original, and frankly, I don't care. I kind of like the idea of it, and as long as I can execute it in a way that I'm happy with, I'll probably end up keeping it. I'll make a couple of adjustments and see how it ends up. But now we've got the top and the bottom part of that ridge, and then the middle, of course, is what constitutes the ridge itself. And now I'm just basically putting the early form of the backing to that. We have to reflect the light off of something in order to make this thing appear to be lit. And in order to do that, we'll use this backing, and then we'll texture it with the glossy, smooth texture. And then we can paint it whatever color we want. In this case, we'll be using the light blue because that's something that I've used elsewhere on the ship, and I kind of like it. But in this case, maybe we could use something a little bit different. So we've got basically, the whole thing is pretty much done. Like, it didn't take long. It's not especially complicated. And now it's just a matter of doing the texturing. And I'm going to miss a bunch with both the texture and the paint. And I'm not too worried about it at this point because it's just a preliminary kind of thing. But once we get all that texturing done, we'll come back around with the paint and do the blue kind of thing. Same as what we did with the ridges on the side of the main hull section. the color and the texture is exactly the same as what we use there. And then because we've got this back section, this backing far enough back, we can put the lights where they're not visible from the outside. So you've got them in a position where they're reflecting off of the surface, but you can't see the bulbs or the fixture themselves, which is kind of cool. So I'll let you take a look at the rest of this. Short episode compared to the last one, just because there was a lot of time spent cleaning things up and getting things ready and then testing and goofing around. Next episode, we're going to carry on. We'll get closer and closer with every episode from now until the time the nacelles are done. And if you want to be notified about the next episode and others in the series, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.